Hi folks, so in this video what we're going to be doing is a Solidworks exercise, and we're going to be creating a little model of this cheese grater here. In the actual model, what we're going to be learning about specifically is something called the loft boss base command and also a shell command. Okay, now anytime you're modeling in Solidworks, it's important to note that there's actually probably multiple ways you could go about creating an object, but sometimes what we talk about when we're actually modeling or creating is this thing called economy of design. Now, economy of design is essentially saying that we want to create the object in the least number of steps possible. Okay, rather than maybe doing something that might take maybe 1 or 2 steps instead of doing it in 5 steps. Okay, so that's called economy of design. So the things we're going to learn about in this video is the loft boss base command. Okay, we're also going to practice shelling, which has been done in a previous video. And we're also going to practice then setting up planes to sketch on. Okay, and that'll be reference planes. So they're the kind of 3 main things. And we'll just read the actual question itself here then. So it says here, a cheese grater is represented in the 2D sketches and the 3D object below. So our 3D here, and we've got our 2D with our various measurements. Create a 3D model of the object in SolidWorks to the dimensions provided. You will need to use the lofted boss base and shell commands to complete the object, and then it says use your own dimensions for the shell command and the handle of the grater. Okay, so if we just come down here, and very quickly we're going to talk about what is a loft boss base in a minute, but we're going to set that, do a little explanation, then we'll actually get creating this. But just in relation to this actual object, okay, we're going to look down here and we can see obviously there's a rectangular bottom that's 150 long and 72 wide. There's obviously a rectangular portion here that is 15 in and 15 in, so it's probably 120 in length and it's 42 wide. There's a bit up here, which is, you can see the green bit, it's kind of just like a rectangular block. And then we obviously have the handle portion up here as well. Okay, so that's what we're going to have to build. But before we start on that, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create a folder to actually save it into. So in your desktop screen, wherever it is that you save your work, I have one here for my 5th year solid work. I'm going to open up that folder and I'm going to right click in the white space and I'm going to rename that, click new folder, and I'm going to title that folder of cheese grater. Okay, and obviously anything that I create, I'm going to save it in there. Now, I've SolidWorks previously opened. So in your SolidWorks screen, you're going to click on File, New, Part, and click OK. That's going to bring us into our modeling screen. As always, good habits, just make sure you're in mmgs in the units down here on the bottom right. If it's anything else, change it to mmgs. We're always working in millimeters. And what we want to do now is I'm going to explain how to use the loft command. So, first of all, if I'm lofting something, I'm going to start off with a sketch on the top plane. So I'm going to select the top plane, I'm going to select sketch. On the top plane, I'm going to use my center point rectangle. So make sure you select center rectangle. And I'm going to do any rectangle there. It doesn't matter what dimension it is at the moment. This is just for demonstration purposes. Now that I've got the rectangle done, you can see it there, it's been done on the top plane. Okay, it's been drawn on the top plane. I'm going to now exit my sketch. If I click on this little symbol up here, click on that. Okay, so there's my sketch. When I'm inactive in a sketch, you can see it's kind of gone gray there. Okay, that's been done on the top plane. Now what I want to do now is I want to create another sketch on a different plane, and it's a plane that is going to be parallel to the top plane. So that's not the front plane. As you can see, it's not parallel, that's perpendicular, and it's not the right plane. Once again, it's perpendicular. So I need to set up a new plane. How I'm going to do that is if I go to my features toolbar and go to reference geometry and select plane. Okay, now, so just to recap that, I'll X that again. Features, reference geometry, plane. Now, you can see a windows after opening up here, and it's asking me for my first, second, and third reference. Now, I only need one reference, the first reference. I'm going to go to my design tree now here on the right hand side, click on the arrow, and the reference I'm going to set is the top plane. So once I select top plane here, it'll get populated into the first reference. And you can see it's gone in there. Now it's gone in there, it's after giving me these parameters. Now the one that I want to only change is, you can see it says 10 millimeters. I want to change that. I'm going to make it 150 randomly. There you go. And you can see the plane is after jumping in 150 millimeters above the top plane. Okay, if I was to change the dimension there to 100, you can see it will drop down. But I want it to be 150, press enter, press the green arrow to accept. Now I've got a new plane, it is titled plane 1. Okay, so that plane 1, I'm now going to sketch on that. So select plane 1 and then select sketch. Once again, in the newer version of SolidWorks, it'll automatically bring you in perpendicular to the surface that you're sketching on, or as it's known in SolidWorks as normal to. If you're in an older version and you're still in a kind of like a 3D version, if you press the space bar and click on this button, normal to, it'll bring you straight to it. Now, using the origin again, I'm going to go to my sketch tool and I'm going to select a circle. I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to make it smaller than the rectangle that I've previously drawn. Okay, doesn't matter what size it is. I'm going to make it slightly smaller. Happy with that. And once again, I'm going to exit my sketch. Okay, and you can see there, I've got another sketch now that is above my previous sketch, the rectangle of a circle on plane 1. I'm just going to come over here to plane 1 where it says that. I'm going to hide that plane. Okay, I'm going to rename sketch 1. Click on sketch 1, rename it, and I'm going to call that rectangle profile. Okay, likewise with sketch 2, I'm going to rename that and I'm going to call it circle profile. There's our circle profile. Okay, now that I have two different profiles, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how to use the loft command. So, in our features toolbar, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. You've previously used extrude, revolves, okay. Now we're getting onto a loft, and in another video I'm going to do a sweep. But in this one we're going to do a loft. So if I select the loft boss base command, it's going to open up this window here. Now there's lots of other things that you can do here in regards to starting, constraints, guided curves and so forth. We'll do those in another video as time goes on. But to start off now, we're just going to focus on the profiles. So if you remember, you can see here they give you a little guide. I've got a square and a circle. Now in a loft boss base command, what it's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to create an object, and we can create it using different profiles, okay? So just because this is a rectangle doesn't mean I have to have a rectangle above it. I can have a circle. So for the first profile, I'm going to select the rectangle profile from here. So from the design tree here, we'll select rectangle, or I could just select it here by clicking on any edge of it as well. Absolutely fine. But I'm going to select it from here. Now the next profile I'm going to select is circle profile. Now notice once I select it, it gets populated in here, but watch what happens on the screen. And there we go. So you can see here, I have two different profiles. I have a rectangle and a circle. And what it's after allowing me to do is to create this object here, okay, using the loft boss base command. So depending on the profiles that you use, you can have various size profiles, various shapes, okay, the 2D shapes, and 90% of the time, 95 even more percent of the time, it'll actually help you create an object, okay, that you're looking to obviously design. Okay, now if I was to actually go into that loft command and select the arrow here, you can see my two sketches have gone and they're underneath the loft because I've used these two sketches to create this structure. If I wanted to edit, let's say, and make this circle larger, I could right click on the circle, or click on the circle, circle profile, and click edit sketch. Now that sketch that's there, I want to make that bigger. So I'm actually going to go to my sketch and I'll go smart dimension. I'm going to make it, I'll say 100. Okay, you can see the circle now is bigger. I'll actually even make it bigger. I'll go 120. You can see the circle is now bigger. Okay, once I exit my sketch, watch how the object will change. There you go. So just because I made the circle bigger, the object is after changing, okay, with it. So that's how you use a loft boss base command. We're going to use that now in the cheese grater exercise. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to delete this, right click, delete. I'll delete the sketches as well, circle profile, delete. I'll delete my plane. We're going to use all these steps again to create our object. Okay, now in my design tree, I'm going to go back out here. I'm just going to explain what we have to do. So if we look at our object, we've obviously got a rectangular bottom. Okay, so I'm going to draw that on the top plane. So if you imagine, I'll use a color here actually, use a green. So if you imagine I've got a plane there, that's my top plane, and on that plane I have to sketch a rectangle. Okay, now that's going up, we're just focusing on the metal portion of it. I've got another rectangle at the top of it that's smaller, it's only 42 wide and it's 120 long. So this one I'll actually put in the measurements, it was 150 and it was 72. Where I got that from was 72 down here and the 150. Now this one, it goes 15 in and 15 in, so 30 from 150 is 120. So if you imagine I have another plane that's going to be 200 millimeters above it, because I have to do another rectangle and it's 200 millimeters above it. So I have another plane up here. Okay, so our reference geometry in planes again. And once again, I'll have another rectangle. Only this rectangle is going to be smaller. Now this rectangle is 120 long and it's 42 wide. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a loft where we create that structure there in between the two profiles. So that's the thing that we're going to have to start off with. Okay. It also says then that we're going to have to come up with our own dimensions for the top portion here. So I'm going to do an extrusion then, and I'm going to say that this is up 10 millimeters between there and there. Okay, so that's the next bit, and then we'll get on to the hand. So, starting on the top plane, I'm going to do a sketch. Go to my sketch toolbar, center point rectangle, draw my rectangle. Now I need to add dimensions. The length is 150, the height is 72. You can see the sketch has gone from blue to black. It's fully defined. Exit my sketch, and I'm going to call this, you can see here it says sketch number 3, going to rename that. I'm going to call that base profile. OCD is kicking in, capital B, base profile. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to set up a reference plane or another plane. So features, reference geometry, plane. In my reference geometry and plane, I'm going to select the top plane as my reference. I want the distance here to be 200 millimeters. Okay, and you can see the plane is there, 200 millimeters above it. Accept that for a green arrow. And what I want to do now is sketch on that plane, click on the plane, click sketch. I want another center point rectangle. So sketch, center point rectangle, click on the origin, draw your rectangle inside it, sketch, smart dimension, dimension this line. I want this line to be 120, and I want this one to be 42. There we go, sketch is fully defined. You can see it down here, fully defined. Exit your sketch, and once again, I'm just going to hide the plane. You can see in this case it's saying plane 2 because I've previously made another plane, which was plane 1. Now what I want to do is I simply want to use the lofted command. So features, loft boss base. Now this is important. When I select it from here, I'm going to select my base profile. I forgot to rename this one. I'll rename it in a minute. I'm going to select the base profile. Now this is very, very important. When I select sketch 4, which I should have called top profile, when I select that, it's important when I select this. Okay, if I select it here, you can see there straight away it's after making this. Now just note though, watch this green little node here, and I have another green one here. If I hadn't selected, I'm going to get rid of sketch 4 there. Let's say I just went and I selected it from here, and if I selected this point. Now remember, on the first one, you can notice there, profile, base profile, it's kind of giving us a guide here. We want to start from this point here. So the one corresponding with that should be this point. But if I selected this point, watch what will happen. The object is after lofting, but it's after twisting. And that's because I'm after giving this little guide. Now, if I want to fix that, I can just click this one and pull it over there, and it's after switching. Note, if I did it that way, you can see it's twisting again. And if I went all the way to the other side, it's actually telling me it won't work. So the one it wants me to do is that one. So just make sure it's like this when you're done. And when you have that done, green arrow to accept. And there's our lofted feature. Once again, I'm just going to go back in here, click on this, and I should have called this top profile. Okay, so if ever you need to change the dimensions, you can see the loft has an arrow beside it. If you click the arrow, you can get into your individual sketches. Okay, now I'm going to call that, give that a rename as well. I'm going to call it Grater loft. Lovely. Now, on this one here, I want to sketch on this surface to make the first platform for that green surface. So I'm going to click on this surface and click sketch. Okay, now, really handy tool we've used before. I just want another rectangle the exact same shape as this. So I'm just going to click convert entities, and I'm going to click on this line, this line, this line, and this line, and click the green arrow to accept. It saves me drawing another rectangle. I could have done it that way as well, absolutely fine. Now, from there, I want to do an extrusion. So features, extrude boss base, and I want that extrusion there, okay, to go up 10 millimeters. And what I want to do as well is I want to untick merge result. Okay, so 10 millimeters and untick the merge result. There you go. Now what you'll notice is, because I've unticked the merge results, I've created a separate body. This structure is separate to this structure. And if you see it up here, I've got Grater, Loft and Boss Extrude. Now I'm going to call this Boss Extrude. I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to say handle bottom. And you'll see here it's after renaming here as well in my solid bodies. Now this is really handy if you undertake merge results. This is really handy when you're modeling, because it can actually limit you making multiple parts when you can make it all in one go. Okay, so that portion is done. Now the next thing we want to do, based on our sheet, is we want to shell it out. So we want to give it a hollowed section. Okay, so we're going to hollow that out now. So underneath the base, I'm going to go to my features. I'm going to click on shell. And it says I can use my own dimension for the shell. I'm going to change this from 10 to 1. And I'm going to select the bottom face here. Now notice, if I click on show preview, okay, notice how it's after shelling in there. You can see the 1 millimeter gap. If I change this, let's say to 5, notice how it's after jumping in there. But I just want it to be 1. Okay, now if I had, when I added on this section, if I had done the merge results, then that would also have shelled out inside here. But it's only shelling out the bottom portion, okay, or the Grater loft part of this actual object, because these two are separate objects. This is a solid body and this is its own solid body. Now that I've done the shell, I'm going to accept that, and you can see it there, it's been hollowed out on the inside. Okay, so there we have it. So that's that portion done. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to refer back here. I'm going to come up with our own measurements for the handle. Now there's multiple ways you can actually do this handle. What we're actually going to do is we're going to create the handle portion first, this section here, which is the circular portion, and we're going to give it its own dimension. Now that handle, if you imagine here, they're missing a little bit of hidden detail there. Something like that, okay, to show the handle. I'm going to give the radius of that handle, I'm going to give it a radius or a diameter of 26. And the outside portion, I'm going to give it a diameter of 30. That means there'll be a 2 millimeter difference there. Okay, I'm also going to set the distance from here to here to be 6. So the gap inside there is 6 and 6. That 6 and 6 adds to 12, which means that this will add up to be 30. Okay, then the height up to the center point, from there up to there, I'm going to set that height to be 60. Okay, now that's all on this side. So the height from the center point of the circles, there's 2 circles there. Okay, one diameter 30, the inside one where the handle part is, diameter 26. It's a height of 60 up from the middle, and there's a gap of 6 and 6 there. Perfect. Now the next little bit here, just to do a little bit of maths, you can see we've got 15 here. So the distance from this point here to this point is 120. So I'm going to set a distance there of, I'm thinking 120. I'm going to make the gap inside in here. I'm going to make these 15 from there to there. So if that one's 15, then that one will be 15. Okay, that leaves us 90. That means the gap in here, I'm going to set it at 5 and 5. Okay, that means if this is 5 and this is 15, 35, 70 from 150, that'll leave me 80 here. So from there, all the way over to there is 80. So that's what we're going to start off with. So I'm going to create a circle. Okay, and I'm going to do it on the right plane, and you'll see why I want to do it on the right plane. So this is economy of design. So I'm going to select the right plane to sketch on. It's in the middle. Okay, so that's the surface I want to draw on, that plane there. So I'm going to select the right plane and sketch. Now that I have the right plane, what I want to do is I'm going to go into my sketch toolbar and select a center line. From the middle of this line here, you can see the little node there. Click on that, drag up, click. I want to press escape to deactivate the tool. Then in my sketch, I'm going to smart dimension that. I'm going to set the height there to be 60, 60. I'm going to grab a circle now, and I'm going to do it from the top of this 60. And the diameter I want for that circle is diameter 26. And there we go, fully defined. Now you can see there, my sketch is on the right plane, it's in the middle of my object. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an extrusion. Features, extrude boss base, but I don't want it to go, I want it to be 80 millimeters, which is correct. 80. But what I want it, and this is very important, is to be mid-plane. So instead of blind, mid-plane. 40 to the left, 40 to the right, 80 overall. I'm now going to click on the green arrow to accept. And there's my object. Okay. Now what we're going to do, just check on that there. Did I click on edit feature? Should have ticked merge results. There we go. Click on the green arrow to accept. Okay, so I'm back in. Now, what I want to do is with this, I'm going to actually draw on this face now. So I'm going to select this face to sketch on and then select sketch. What I want to do is I'm going to go to my sketch tool, grab a circle. Now, if I go to the circle, I should be able to find the center if you hover over the middle. Click, drag out, there's my circle. I need to go to my sketch tool, smart dimension. I want this to be 30. And then I want to get a line. Make sure you grab the little node at the side of it, where the number 9 would be in a clock. All the way down to here. Click. You can see there it's giving me a little guide back up to here. And you can see the little sketch we're creating. I'm going to go to my sketch tool, trim entities, and I'm going to cut the bottom portion. And there we go. Now that's the little handle part that's going to attach onto it. So I'm now going to go to my features toolbar, extrude boss base, now not mid-plane and go blind, but obviously the distance is too big. If you go back to the sheet, you can remember I set that distance to be 15 millimeters. So set your distance here, merge results, 15, there we go, accept that, the green arrow, there we go. Now, what do I want to do with that? I want the exact same thing to happen on the opposite side. Okay, so I have to then obviously just mirror it over. So if I go features and I click on mirror, you can see it here. Now it's saying mirror face plane. I'm going to select the right plane because that's the one in the middle. Okay, so I'm after selecting that. And then what I want to do is features to mirror, so not secondary mirror face plane, features to mirror. I'm going to select boss extrude. And you can see there it's after kind of coming in over here. When I'm happy with that, green arrow to accept. There you have it. There is our object after being created. Now there's multiple ways I could have gone about actually designing that, but that is probably the best way to actually do it. At the very end, I'm going to rename my features. So I'm going to say Grater shell. On this one, I'm going to say rename it F2. I'm going to say handle. And once again, OCD kicking in. And then on this one, I'm going to say rename. I'm going to say handle supports. Handle support. Okay, very helpful to me. Always rename your features. Good habit to get into. Okay, that is the actual object after being created there now, guys, where we use obviously the loft command, which was a new tool that we're after learning there. We use the shell and then we use the mirror feature. Now the last thing I would do then is I'm actually going to come up here. You can see I've got solid bodies. I've got 2 of them. I'm actually going to do just the mirror one. You can see here because it'll always rename to the last thing you did. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to say just the body, not the whole part. And I'm going to give this a green color. So I'm going to click on, just going to do a solid color. I'm going to find the green. There's the green. Accept that green arrow. I'm going to give this structure down here, which is the Grater shell. Once again, it renamed to the previous one. Right click, appearance, going to do the body part because it's a separate body. On this one, I will give a metal. I'm just going to say aluminium, polished aluminium. And there's the green arrow. Accept it. Okay, so that's the whole body is after being completed. There is our cheese grater after being done, the exercise with the loft boss base command. So I'm going to go up here to File, Save As, navigate to the folder. Mine's on my desktop. So Desktop, 50 or Solidworks, and then I'm going to save it into cheese grater, and then Solidworks part, rename the file name, cheese grater. There you go. Click on Save. And that is the object completed. Okay, so you can see here, we're after completing this structure. Now we haven't put in any of the details there, obviously, of the actual holes for the slots for it. That will be done in another video where you learn how to do what's known as a pattern. Okay, but for the purpose of today's exercise, completing the loft boss base, completing a shell, and completing planes. And then we did a previous kind of things that we would have done in previous videos, whereby we did extrusions, mid-plane, and so forth, and then mirroring. Okay, so that's that video done, guys. I hope you found that helpful.